Welcome back to the Andrew and Ian Show. I'm Andrew Surwick here again with Ian. Hi, Ian. How are you doing this evening, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Just kind of trying to react to some of these trades that have happened so far in the NFL world and things that are going around in the sports world.
Yeah, lots going on. We'll start with the MLB. Obviously, got the playoffs going on for those, so it's a little important time for the MLB. But we'll get into those trades that you mentioned. But let's talk. The ALCS and the NLCS are both being played. Game 1 and 2 have been played in NLCS, and Game 2 is being played currently in the ALCS. The NLCS, we got the Dodgers and the Mets playing. Mets winning Game 2 yesterday to tie the series. Um, it was almost a choke job from the Dodgers, but they ended up winning the last two games in their series against the Padres to advance. I was praying on that Dodgers choke job that they always seem to do, but maybe they'll have that here with the Mets. The Mets have been kind of a story, I guess, this whole year. Starting off really, really poorly, and then basically from May onwards, they just kept playing really, really good baseball, and um, we got ourselves a pretty damn good series here between the Dodgers and the Mets. I do like the Mets to win this one. I feel like the Dodgers is just going to choke, but the Dodgers are just absolutely loaded with talent, so they could easily win this series. But I'll be pulling for the Mets. I mean, they're the only team that's left in the playoffs, really, that I can at least stand somewhat.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Outside of, I'd like to see Cleveland and from the AL Central win it all just because it's an AL Central team, but other than that, I do want to see the Mets win this series and potentially win it all just simply because, I like to see the Dodgers choke. It's funny to see these high payroll teams choke. Granted, the Mets do have a higher payroll than the Dodgers, but it's the Mets. So, you like to see them succeed every so often just to, you know, get that close for the fans just so they can lose it all in the World Series. It'd be that funny.
It is a meme, and honestly, the way the ALCS is going, we might have both New York teams in the World Series. We got the Guardians taking on the Yankees in the ALCS. The Tigers just couldn't put it together in the last two games in the ALDS against them, and Skubal gave up 5 runs in 1 inning, and that was enough to seal it for Cleveland. There, you don't do that. The Tigers win that game 3-2. Um, it was a very, very rare, inning from Skubal. I mean, you haven't seen him give up 5 runs in a game this year, really. Let alone 1 inning. Um, it was a very, very tough watch, but he came back with a 5 pitch sixth inning after that, and then obviously the Yankees beat the brakes off of the Royals. No surprise there. And now they're beating the brakes off the Guardians. The Yankees, obviously, one of those extremely high payroll teams, but I fucking hate the Yankees. I hate the Guardians too, but I want the Guardians to win the series just because I really, really cannot stand the Yankees or their fans for that matter. But I mean, I just don't see the Guardians beating the Yankees. The Yankees are just way, way, way more talented than the Guardians could ever hope to be. And it's sad, but that's just the truth there.
Yeah, I mean, I am with you. I don't like the Yankees. I especially don't like Cleveland. So I would prefer to see the Yankees win this series, but like I said, if Cleveland does win, I'm not really that mad because it's an AL Central team, but I don't see them winning it at all because right now they're down 3-0 and the fourth just ended. And already we saw Cleveland played the Tigers very close. Outside of that first game, and second and third game were shutouts for Detroit. They were pretty close games. And then Game 5 they won what 7-3, and it took a grand slam off Tarek Skubal to really get this Guardians offense, some runs across the board. Other than that, Cleveland was, having a scoreless inning streak like the Padres were at like 20 innings after those back-to-back shutouts. They they had no answers for this Tigers pitching staff until late game 4, late game 5, and that was enough for them to win the series. And now it's just not working at all against the Yankees, and that's not going to work against the Yankees. They're a much better team than the Tigers. Garrett Cole, I don't think is as good of a pitcher as Tarek Skubal, but he's still their best pitcher on the staff. So once you get past Garrett Cole, you don't really have to worry as much, but they have more solidified starters than the Tigers do. There's not relievers starting every other game outside of your ace. So this Yankee staff, and then the offense for the Yankees, we all know about that. So we don't even need to talk about that. Jose Ramirez can do all he wants. He is not going to outswing Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, especially in Yankee Stadium.
No, you're definitely not. And the thing is, I think what really cost the Tigers that series with the Guardians is this pitching chaos cannot work in a series, because when you see the same pitcher every single day, like they saw Holton every day, they saw Vest every day. When you do that, guys are gonna pick up on how you throw, what you throw, and where it's gonna be, and that's how really Cleveland ended up winning the series. I saw Skubal twice in this series, and I feel like that might have been part of why they were able to rally a little bit against him. Because when you see a pitcher multiple times, your batting average against them gets better. And then when you do that over a course of a series, it's really going to get a lot better against them every single time you go up against that pitcher. So that's why I like the pitching chaos theory. It works in the regular season, but it just does not really work in a playoff series, and I think that's really what cost the Tigers there. But outside of that, yeah, I'm not really interested in the playoffs anymore, because any of the teams that I like are completely out of it, and I got 3 teams in there that I completely just cannot stand, especially their fans. I'm looking at you, Dodgers and Yankees fans. But yeah. Switching gears now, we're gonna go on over to the NFL, and we got quite a bit to talk about here, and we're gonna start with the trades that have happened today. Starting with, now I don't know if I haven't seen anything if the trade is 100% set yet, but Davante Adams is looking to be headed to the New York Jets. I don't know what the Jets will be getting or already have gotten. I haven't really looked at it since this morning. But it looks like, yeah, Davante Adams to the Jets. Probably going to happen. And honestly, I think that'd be a great win for the Jets to turn their season around, because Rodgers and Adams already have a great rapport with each other. And, I would not be surprised, if the Jets offense does start to get rolling a little bit, especially now that Nathaniel Hackett's not calling the plays. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Vegas gets for him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers are back together again, and they're both wearing green again. It's a weird feeling, but it's a good feeling knowing they're not in the NFC North anymore. But it's a really good pickup for the Jets. It shows that they're really wanting to do something, and they really want to take this offense that has been kind of finding itself a little bit. They want to find that real, true number 1 wide receiver, and they want to give Aaron Rodgers a familiar target, one that he's already got chemistry with, that they don't have to worry about. He knows he can get the ball to Davante Adams, and he can rely on Davante Adams. And Aaron Rodgers right now is playing very well, considering his age and the injury. He's now got a better receiver to, prevent these late game picks to stop, game winning drives. So I think this is ultimately they're going to start swaying these games where he's not throwing to inexperienced receivers or receivers he doesn't have chemistry with. Now he has his old friend from Green Bay, and it's a great pickup. And I think it was a conditional third with potential to become a second. I don't know if the conditions on that, but other than that, I think that's what I've seen is it's a third round pick. And if that's the case, that's a steal.
Yeah, that's a pretty damn good steal. And I think part of it is just with the Jets is Aaron Rodgers might not be playing next year. He might be retiring at the end of the season. So if he is, you know, this is the type of move to get him one more ring. Another trade that happened earlier today. We got the Browns trading Amari Cooper and a sixth round pick to Buffalo for a 2025 third round pick and a 2026 seventh round pick. And that seventh round pick used to be Detroit's pick. So, pretty good trade there. Browns obviously going to be big sellers come the deadline, I think. It's a good weapon for Josh Allen to throw to. I mean, Amari Cooper's not an elite wide receiver like your Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, etc. But he's a reliable guy as your wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. I like this trade for Buffalo, and the Browns got pretty fair value for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best right there with the Browns might be sellers at the deadline, and this is just them getting ahead of the game with this. I mean, like you said, they got pretty decent value, and Buffalo even trading a pick that's not their own. So they're kind of not losing anything anyways. But at the same time, you are starting to, clear ship a little bit if you're Cleveland. And I think the Bills also made a move and dropped Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So the Bills, already made a move corresponding to implant Amari Cooper right away. So we know where he's going to be slotted in for the Bills. And Josh Allen can play. So he's going to find a way to incorporate him. And like you said, he's not up there with, Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson or any of those guys. But he's serviceable enough. And I mean, he's a pro football player for a reason. And he's still playing for a reason.
Yeah, he's still a serviceable wide receiver. It's definitely going to, I think, help Buffalo going forward. I feel like, a guy like Cooper is an upgrade for them. So I think that really works out pretty damn well for Buffalo. And then another trade that we got here, Cam Akers is headed to the Vikings. Let me see if I can find anything. Let's see. They're sending 2 conditional picks. One's a 20. They're both 2026. One's a 6th round and one's a 7th round pick. I don't see what those conditions are, but yeah, Cam Akers obviously he's been inactive this year so far, so obviously not really valuable to any team. And plus, running backs in this league aren't as valuable as they used to be. Although the value of the running back is starting to rise again. But yeah, no. I feel like for Minnesota, it's a low risk sort of trade. If you get him, if he's healthy and he can play, great. You got yourself a running back that can at least do something for your team. If not, they only lost a 6th and a 7th round pick. So I think it's a win-win for the Vikings, and obviously for the Texans, it's just basically a removing piece of the cap hit, and that's really all it is for them. It's kind of like a cap dump almost.
Yeah, I mean, also considering Minnesota just had before the bye Aaron Jones go out with an injury, and he's still considered week to week. And I mean, the backup Ty Chandler in place of Aaron Jones did not do good at all. I mean, he ran for 30 yards on 14 carries against the Jets. Now, granted, the Jets is a pretty decent defense, but at the end of the day, in an offense where you have the offensive weapons that Sam Darnold has, you have the ability to open the run game up because you have the receiving threats that are capable of going deep and stretching the field wherever you want, especially with Justin Jefferson, who is probably number one receiver in the league right now. So I think this is more of a, in case Aaron Jones can't start, they're bringing back a familiar face who can get implemented into uh, Kevin O'Connell's offense immediately because he's played there before. Just because, Ty Chandler might not be able to hold that RB1 workload like he showed after, Aaron Jones went out against the Jets.
Yeah, and Akers is obviously a much better player talent wise than Ty Chandler. So I think that is just huge for Minnesota while Aaron Jones is out. And yeah, like I said, it's low risk, high reward for Minnesota, and it just makes them every bit better with that. If Akers hits and he's pretty damn good, Vikings are going to be scary. You know, with that run game as well as that pass game that they have right now. But yeah, outside of that though, no other major trades. Come on, Lions, please trade for someone. Please trade for someone. Because Lord knows they need it now with Hutchinson out. And we'll talk about that when we get to the Lions game. But let's get into our review. Of course, Thursday night we had the Seahawks hosting the Niners. Niners winning this one 36-24. And the Niners were up pretty big at halftime, 16-3, and then yeah, they come out of the third quarter. They get a nice 5-minute drive down the field, get a touchdown, and then the Seahawks start clawing themselves back into this game. But ultimately, fourth quarter rolls around. San Francisco does just enough to keep Seattle out of this game, and they end up winning this game 36-24. Brock Purdy had a pretty average Brock Purdy game with 3 touchdowns, 18 for 28 and 255 yards. Pretty damn good game from him. Geno Smith, it wouldn't be a Geno Smith game without an interception. He threw 2 of those in this game. And yeah, Debo also had a really, really great game. And you mentioned it in the preview on Thursday that actually, no, you mentioned it on Tuesday, I think, last week, reviewing that they need to get Debo going to make plays and to start winning games, and there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think ironically enough that you mentioned that, I think he had the same amount of receptions this week as he did last week. I think he only had one more target, but obviously the production value this week was far more than he had last week. So I don't know what they did or what he did specifically, but this is what happens when the Niners have Debo Samuel, even without Christian McCaffrey. Like, we know Jordan Mason is serviceable, and he's pretty damn decent back there in place of Christian McCaffrey. But we know that the receiving offense is their main threat right now with him out. So, you have one of the better tight ends with George Kittle. Brandon Ayuk is now in that place where they got to get him involved now. He had 2 receptions and 4 targets and only 37 yards. You just paid him all this money. You had this crazy offseason. Where is he going to go? Where is he going to go? Is he going to go to Pittsburgh or is he staying here? And he stays just to get 4 targets and 2 receptions. So, it's great that they got Debo involved, but now here's the problem of they have so many offensive weapons, they're not spreading it around. They still won the game, but at the end of the day, Brandon Ayuk just signed that contract, and he's probably not happy because he's not getting receptions. But again, it's going to be hard. But the Niners won the game, and Seattle, yikes. I mean, yeah, Geno's throwing a lot of yards, but like you said, 2 picks, only 1 touchdown, and seems like a classic Geno performance to me. The run game just non-existent, only 52 total yards. That's the Lions really did break this team, huh?
Yeah, they haven't won a game since the Lions. They lost to New York, and now they lost to the Niners, who the Niners aren't even that good this year. Honestly, without Christian McCaffrey, I mean, that offense does not look like itself. To London, we had Chicago and Jacksonville playing. Chicago as the home team. Chicago winning this one 35-16, and what a game from Caleb Williams. 23 for 29, 236 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Um, yeah, look, the Bears defense, they did what they always do. Granted, the Bears defense has only really played bad offenses all year long, but it doesn't really matter because the Chicago offense was just absolutely dump trucking Jacksonville in this game. And Jacksonville's defense, granted, is not that good either, but yeah, just a really, really good game from Chicago. And yeah, Jacksonville, it might be time to move on from Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of a shock when I saw Caleb Williams at 4 touchdowns. That was it was impressive. I mean, it's not really every day you see a Bears quarterback throw for 4 touchdowns, right? I mean, granted, only 6 incompletions as well, and this is after traveling. Normally, we don't see, high-scoring games when teams travel, and I mean, Jacksonville, perfect example, only 16 points, but Chicago came ready to play across the pond, and good for them. With the rookie quarterback, I gotta salute him, and now, still, every team in the NFC North is above 500, and they're looking like the best division in football right now.
I mean, to be fair with Jacksonville, it's not very often they score more than 20 points anyways this year. In fact, they haven't scored 20 points. They've only scored 20 points. Oh no, they scored it twice this year. The win against the Colts and then the loss to the Texans. But yeah, no, that was about an average performance for Jacksonville there in that game, to be honest with you. But anyways, the Patriots hosted the Texans. Texans routing the Patriots 41-21. Look, Drake May, he had a pretty good showing for his debut. 20 for 33, 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, and he also ran for 38 yards as well in this game. I was impressed with Drake May. Now, he'd made a lot of stupid mistakes, obviously, with those 2 interceptions. But still, 3 touchdowns on debut. That's the best debut out of any of the rookie quarterbacks this year. Yes, now he was running for his life a lot in that game too because New England's offensive line blows massive ass, but I was impressed with him. CJ Stroud, another just good game from him, not anything super flashy like he was to start the year. Last couple weeks he hasn't really been super flashy. 20 for 31, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Joe Mixon had a really great game on the ground for Houston, and that's really all you got to ask for. Houston's defense obviously did a really good job in this game, and yeah, Houston moves on to 5-1, and I don't think anyone's stopping them right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of shocking they have the one loss, but I mean, when they played a really, really good Vikings team, and they got their asses handed to them by that Vikings team too. But after 2 close games against the Jaguars and the Bills, it's really refreshing for the Texans to have a big win here. And I mean, like you said, with Drake May, in my eyes, if he didn't have the 2 picks, this would probably be the best rookie debut that we've seen. I mean, he's thrown into one of the worst situations out of all of the rookie quarterbacks. And, I mean, he threw 3 touchdowns, 243 yards. I feel like the New England offense was better. But, at the end of the day, like you said, that offensive line is terrible. And you got to find a way to protect your quarterback, especially if you think Drake May is your franchise quarterback, and he very well may be. You got to give him time to pass, so he's not throwing those picks.
Drake May, maybe. I see what you did there. But no, I mean, obviously he's a better option than Jacoby Brissett, and he I mean, the New England offense definitely looked a lot better with him than with Brissett. So I think, yeah, the New England, it was a good pick for them this year drafting him, and yeah, they just got to find him protection. Baltimore hosted Washington. Uh, the Ravens winning this one 30-23. Derrick Henry is a fucking beast, man. 24 carries, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground for him. Fucking absolutely great game from him. And both quarterbacks actually played a really, really good game. Lamar, 20 for 26, 323 yards and a touchdown and a pick. Jaden Daniels, 24 for 35, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Really, really good game from both those quarterbacks, especially Lamar Jackson. You don't see me saying that a whole lot because I see him more as a running back than a quarterback. But when you throw for 300 yards like a real quarterback does, I got no problem with you. So yeah, it was a close game throughout. It was just a really good game. Both teams played very, very well. Both defenses actually looked really, really good against each other, despite all the crazy yardage that these teams got. The fact that we only finished with a 30-23 score is kind of impressive, given the stat lines, especially from these quarterbacks and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most mind-blowing thing about all of that is Zay Flowers had 132 yards receiving and did not get a touchdown.
On 9 receptions too, which is
Yeah.
wild.
I thought at some point he was going to get a touchdown, but no, Lamar only threw the one touchdown pass. And, I mean, this is a game, even though the Commanders lost, they are really, really looking good still. I mean, they hung up there with one of the best teams in the AFC. And we all know Lamar's record against NFC teams and blah, 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 and it's only getting better. But you got to give Jaden Daniels some credit. He really played well against that Baltimore defense, and the fact that he didn't throw a pick against them, you got to give him even more credit. I mean, they didn't win the game, but he's performing very well. And right now, even with the loss, they're still looking pretty decent for the NFC East.
Yeah, they definitely are, especially with that Cowboys loss that we'll get to shortly. But Philly, they hosted Cleveland. They win this one 20-16, and after this game, the way this game was called for Philly, especially on the offensive side of the ball, you gotta think Nick Sirianni's going to be gone if not in the season, by the end of the season. He is not doing a good job as a head coach with this extremely talented roster that he has in front of him. It's just it's frustrating to watch the Eagles, quite frankly, because they have a ton of talent, but they're wasting Saquon, they're wasting Jalen Hurts, they're wasting A.J. Brown, quite frankly. Yes, A.J. Brown had 116 yards and a touchdown in this game, but, I mean, the Browns are awful, awful, and you only put up 20 on them, and you almost lost to them as well. It's unacceptable as a coaching standard when you have all this talent and you are barely beating bad teams.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. They barely beat a Browns team, and they could have lost to this Browns team. That is just god awful. I mean, the fact that this Browns team even scored 16 points is a miracle in my eyes at this point. But yeah, Jalen Hurts has not been looking good. I mean, he's had some pretty bad games with turnovers, but again, only 20 points total from this offense. Saquon Barkley only had 47 yards on 18 carries. He averaged 2.6 yards per carry. That was zero point 0.2 yards more than Jalen Hurts. That's a problem. And like Saquon Barkley is a really, really, really good running back. To have this bad of a game against this Browns team, that's not a good sign. So like I said, the Commanders might be in a better place for the NFC East if this is how their competition is going to play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a long season for Philly, I think, unless Sirianni can just figure it the fuck out but
He
yeah,
might be on the way out,
he might be,
100%.
and then Dan Campbell will be the last 2021 coach hire that's still standing, and the only one that was actually truly successful. Um, anyways, Green Bay hosted Arizona. Green Bay absolutely demolishing the Cardinals here, 34-13. Look, actually, both quarterbacks were basically about the same, except for in the touchdown department. Kyler Murray, 22 for 32. Jordan Love, 22 for 32. Kyler Murray, 214 yards. Love, 258. And then Murray only with one touchdown, and Love with four. But Love also threw a pick. Obviously, the last 2 weeks for Jordan Love have not been that great, but he's back to himself, I think, with this game. He looked very, very good. He looked back to basically how he looked in week one and the back half of last year. Just very calm, collected, productive with the ball, and very efficient with the ball as well. So, good win for Green Bay. Arizona, obviously, not too good. And yeah, Green Bay moves on to 4-2.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona lost the game, and just to rub salt in the wound, Marvin Harrison Jr. went out. So this is it's not what you want to see if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan. It's to be sitting at 2-4, and to have your number one pick, or not your number one pick, but your first round pick, go out. I believe it was also a concussion.
Yeah, I believe it was a concussion. You're right.
Yeah, Jonathan Gannon confirmed Monday that he suffered a concussion.
Yeah,
So
that's rough.
that's not a good sign. But on the other hand, with Green Bay, Jordan Love looked very much back. I mean, anytime your quarterback throws for 4 touchdowns is a really good sign. I mean, like you said, coming off of the weeks that he's had, this is a really, really good sign. Considering he didn't throw multiple picks and only just had the one, I'll take it.
New Orleans hosted Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, huge win on the road here, 51-27. Uh, Baker Mayfield took last week personally. 24 for 36, 325 yards, 4 touchdowns, but he did throw 3 picks. You don't like seeing that, obviously. Sean Tucker, what a game from him. 14 carries, 136 yards, 1 touchdown. Averaging almost 10 yards a carry there. Really solid game from him. And then Spencer Rattler, his first start this year, 22 for 40, 243 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Not necessarily the performance that you want to see from your rookie QB, but he had the second best rookie game debut by touchdowns in this game. So yeah, but Tampa Bay almost 600 total yards of offense and just complete domination of this game on both sides of the ball. Despite Baker throwing 3 picks, they were able to pull off a huge win here.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Baker threw 3 picks, but they won by 24. That's a hell of a performance. I mean, granted, Spencer Rattler did throw 2, so that pretty much neutralized the other ones. All but one of Baker's, pretty much. But they still won by 24 points. I believe, after adding up the totals, they had over 600 yards of offense. That is ridiculous. That's just a crazy output. And, I mean, we all knew New Orleans wasn't. I mean, they had a good start to the season, really good start, but they've fallen back to earth very hard right now. 4 games in a row now that they've just found a way to not win. And I mean, you score 27 points in the second quarter, and then you just can't score in the second half at all. That's a real big concern. But yeah, Tampa Bay, another divisional game where, I mean, that last week it didn't go their way. This one it did, and now they're 4-2, and they're still hanging in there with Atlanta for the division.
Yeah, overall, a good victory. 600 yards of offense almost is crazy, and yeah. The Titans hosted the Colts. The Colts getting the win here, 20-17, and look, this was I think, toilet bowl of the week worthy at least. Joe Flacco, 22 for 38, 189 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Will Levis, he did another meme. He is on a fucking wild 5 game streak of just meme worthy moments this year. Now this week with the fucking Spider-Man thing that he did. Absolutely incredible. His play, not so much. 16 for 27, 95 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Really, the run game is what kept Tennessee in this game. And the Colts, what I took away from this game is that you fucking need Anthony Richardson. And if you don't have him and you don't have Jonathan Taylor, your season's pretty much done and over with. Now, obviously, Jonathan Taylor, he's going to be out for a while, but Anthony Richardson, I've heard, might be back this week, so we'll just have to wait and find out. But yeah, the Colts, it's gonna be a tough season if you're gonna be playing really close games against really, really bad teams that you should just easily beat up on, especially division rivals that are really bad.
Yeah, I mean, this is just another classic, Southern Division moment where they love to tear themselves apart internally, right? I mean, if the Colts would have lost this game, I wouldn't have been shocked, honestly. Like you said, it's really bad for them. I mean, this Titans team is not good whatsoever. Will Levis is pulling a Michigan right now. He threw for 95 yards. What the fuck is that in an NFL game? That's absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, but he gave us a meme, so I mean, like, I'll take that over a good performance from him.
I guess
Honestly,
it is
at this
entertaining.
point, with the way how sad the Titans are, I'll take a meme over Will Levis playing. I mean, they don't have anyone good as their backup either, so it's like, yeah, whatever, take what you can get, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, that's why you don't trade Malik Willis to the Packers and let him go off. But it's neither here nor
Yeah,
there at this point.
yeah, yeah. We'll just point and laugh at the Titans. Anyways, the Broncos hosted the Chargers. The Chargers winning this one 23-16, and uh, Justin Herbert, pretty damn good game from him. 21 for 34, 237 yards and a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins had a really, really good game on the ground for the Chargers, and ultimately that is kind of what won this game for them. Their defense has a lot of good talent on it, and they were able to shut down that Broncos offense. Now, granted, that Broncos offense isn't the greatest, but they're not terrible either. But it was a nice win off the bye for the Chargers, and they improved their record. They're 3-2 now. Uh, things are looking good so far in the Harbaugh era there for the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, this is if you're the Broncos, just they're kind of in the same case as the Cardinals were earlier, except it's not one of their draft picks that went out. But they lost their cornerback Patrick Surtain to a concussion from this game. So not only did they lose the game, they lost one of their best players on the defensive side of the ball. So that's a very major blow. But like you said, Chargers coming off the bye, a good win. They found a way to not Charger the game and lose it, especially against a division rival. And Jim Harbaugh's, I mean, did you see if that he left that game early?
Yeah,
Because
he left that game early. Okay, he went to the medical tent, and he came back out with different colored pants. There's some conspiracy theory rolling around out there that he shat himself. That would be the funniest fucking thing ever if that is true.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but I mean, if it is true, your team still won the game. So
So I mean, fuck it. You just won a natty. Now your team won against a division rival. Fuck it. Shit your pants. Who cares?
I guess so. I mean, it's Jim Harbaugh's world, and we're all living in it at this point.
Fucking A, right. The Raiders hosted the Steelers. Steelers winning this one 32-13. This is the first time this week, or this year really, that the Steelers offense actually looked pretty good. And it's funny, it's coming off of a week where I basically compared the Steelers offense to last year's Iowa Hawkeyes offense, where they just could not fucking score. And then, of course, they go off for 32 fucking points. So what the fuck do I know? Good game from the Steelers. Najee Harris, 106 yards on the ground. Justin Fields, 14 for 24, 145 yards, no touchdowns. Aiden O'Connell was in for the Raiders this week instead of Gardner Minshew, and you couldn't have told me that it was Aiden O'Connell in the game, because I would have thought it was Gardner Minshew, because they're both equally ass. And yeah, that's all you got. The Steelers defense, we know, is obviously really, really good, and this Raiders offense sucks ass anyways. And yeah, Steelers were able to put up some points. That's all I got to take away from that one, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad when Justin Fields only throws for 145 yards and the Steelers put up 32 points on you. That's a real bad performance from the Raiders, especially on the defensive end. I mean, at this point, especially now with Devontae Adams leaving, they're embracing the tank at this point. It feels like I mean, they're now 2-4. It's very obvious that they're not going anywhere with either Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, at the helm of this team. But I mean, when you only have 57 total yards from your running backs, that's not going to help the quarterback at all. But I mean, it's not going to help when your defense is not giving you any favors at all.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are embracing the tank. Please trade Crosby to the Lions. Carolina hosted Atlanta. Atlanta winning this one 38-20, and obviously Atlanta covered that spread, but I thought this was going to be a blowout, because especially just looking at last week's performance for Atlanta and just how bad Carolina is. But no, Atlanta, really, really good game there. Kirk Cousins, 19 for 30, 225 yards, and a touchdown. Andy Dalton actually had a pretty good game for Carolina, 26 for 38, 2 touchdowns, but he did throw 2 picks in this game, and ultimately that is kind of just what hurt Carolina in this game. They did lose the turnover battle 2-1, but yeah, I feel like obviously Andy Dalton is not the answer in Carolina. He's certainly the answer over Bryce Young. But yeah, good win for Atlanta. A needed win against a bad divisional opponent. Keeps themselves tied up with that tiebreaker, of course, over Tampa Bay right now. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, especially with that tiebreaker. I know we're only 6 games into the season for some of these teams, but it's a 17-game season. You got to start thinking about tiebreakers and divisions and all of that stuff eventually. And I mean, like you said, the Falcons, it's a good divisional win against a very bad divisional opponent who arguably might be one of, if not the worst team in the league. I mean, especially with Bryce Young at the helm. But this is a really, really good game from the Falcons offense yet again, and they're showing that with the competent quarterback who's not Desmond Shitter, they can win games and they can threaten the Bucs for this division crown. And I mean, this NFC South division might actually be fun to watch at this point.
I mean, just for 2 teams, because we thought maybe the Saints would be in there. No. And we obviously know Carolina ain't in it. And, yeah, exactly. And yeah, but it'll be interesting. But look, this weekend was week 6. We're heading into week 7. We're already a third of the way through the entire season. So I mean, that kind of tells you the tiebreaker is a very important thing in the NFL. So you just gotta take them when you can, right? And then Dallas hosted the Lions. The Lions, man. A lot to talk about in this game. but they win 47-9. Um, on Jerry Jones's birthday. You just hate to see it. Um, Goff, great game from him, 18 for 25, 315 yards, 3 touchdowns. Dak Prescott throwing 17 for 33, 178 yards, and 2 interceptions. No touchdowns, obviously. Yeah, look, the Lions just dominated both sides of the ball. Now, the Cowboys had 2 really good drives to start the game. They did lead the game off with a field goal on their opening drive, and their second drive was good. It just ended in an interception, and then from there it just kind of snowballed for Dallas. David Montgomery, hell of a game from him. 12 carries, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, the Cowboys couldn't run the ball. They couldn't. They really couldn't even pass the ball this week. CeeDee Lamb had a really good couple drives to start the game, and after that, he just kind of was out of the game, pretty much. The Lions secondary putting in the fucking work covering him, and they did a damn good job at it. Unfortunately, though, Lions lost a player that they cannot afford to lose if they want to win a Super Bowl, and that was Aiden Hutchinson in this game, and he's out for the year. There's a slight chance if they make it to the Super Bowl, he could play in that, but he's going to be so out of shape by then, it's just not going to be fucking worth it for him, especially with his health. But yeah, gruesome tibia fracture. It snapped clean through, which is a good thing. It's better than having it fractured. But yeah, his leg just... What the fuck is a Lee McNeil's leg made out of for a leg to just snap clean through like that, man?
I don't know, but you see how big Ali McNeil is? That's a big dude. So like, and they're moving. They're moving. So like physics, yeah. Physics was not on Aiden Hutchinson's like side there. So yeah, prayers to him as he is recovering and all of that. I would agree. I don't think he's gonna come back this season, even if they surprisingly make the Super Bowl. But like this on the outside of that, this was about as good as revenge as you could take if you're the Lions from last year. I mean, in Jerry's world, on Jerry's birthday, to just you're out there. Ben Johnson is literally running like Madden rookie mode plays out here with linemen. Who runs a hook and ladder to their fucking linemen? Who like really? Who does that?
Yeah, Dan
I mean,
Skipper lining out as a fucking wideout in like
who
the
does
fourth
that?
quarter. He was trying. You could tell Ben Johnson was trying super fucking hard to get one of his linemen to score a touchdown in that game, and we almost had it on that hook and ladder play.
Barring a penalty, we would have
And
had a Penei Sewell rushing touchdown.
yes, it would.
Because
It was he was trying so hard. The Decker dropping the pass, and then yeah, he was just trying so hard to make sure that one of his linemen scored. And look, it's petty as hell because of what happened last year. But like, I get it. I get it. You're trying to get your revenge from last year, but just try not to do that every fucking game, please. Ben, just please don't do that. I get it against the Cowboys, but you gotta also wonder how many fucking plays does he have for his linemen to score touchdowns if he's just willingly to throw out a whole bunch of different ones in this game.
yeah, that's it was really funny because I was really hoping that they were gonna just run a play to one of their linemen, and if they would have done the flea flicker to Sam Porter to a lineman instead, who reported eligible, and they ran it for a touchdown, like that's Sports Center #1 play of the week, right? Like that would
That
have
might be play of the year.
that's like you can't tell me that like we've already had a thick six, not a thick six, a thick pick, sorry, where I think it was a D lineman got a pick in one of these games. So if we could have gotten an offensive lineman to get a touchdown at any point in this game, that would have been great and just icing on Jerry's cake for his birthday. Just the massive, happy birthday with the middle finger cake, saying Fuck you, buddy.
Happy birthday, shit ass. That's basically what that was. The
Dude, the
Lions.
biggest home
Yeah.
loss in Cowboys history since you bought the
And the
team.
first time since he bought the team that the Cowboys are 0-3 at home to start the year. Uh, and then Sunday night football. I mean, I get it. We were maybe expecting the Bengals to be good this year, but still, why was this a choice of a game? We got the Giants hosting the Bengals. The Bengals winning this one 17-7. Um, yeah. I honestly, I'm at a loss for words on this game because both offenses looked like ass. You know, obviously Daniel Jones had that one good game last week. He's back to fucking being a burger flipper. Um, yeah, Joe Burrow didn't have the greatest game. He did run for a touchdown, but he didn't throw for one. And yeah, just brutal game to watch. I mean, I honestly turned it off after the third quarter. I was like, okay, this game is super boring. Cincinnati should be absolutely dogging the Giants right now, but they're not. That just tells you how bad Cincinnati really fucking is, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this was the game where I thought if the Bengals were really going to get back on track, this was it. This was a terrible showing. I mean, Joe Burrow running for like a damn near 50-yard touchdown is probably your best play on offense. That's not a good showing. I mean, you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins at wide receiver, and you're not throwing either of them the ball. I mean, T. Higgins had 7 receptions for 77 yards, so he caught all 7 of his targets. Jamar Chase, 5 receptions on 6 targets for 72 yards. They just didn't get in the end zone. And it's like, it takes Joe Burrow at a 47-yard touchdown run and Chase Brown scoring, I believe it was a 30-yard touchdown. And that's how you win the game pretty much. Outside of a field goal, that was your offense. You have to get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in the end zone. Like they're just way too good of receivers to not give them that chance. And I don't.
Especially against this dog ass Giants defense.
Yeah, you expect more. And I mean, Joe Burrow only completed 19 passes. That's I don't know if I would have ran the ball 20 times in this game if I'm Cincinnati, but yeah, I don't know. They won the game at the end of the day. It's going to be a rough road to come back. They're now 2-4, so they won at the end of the day. It wasn't pretty.
And then lastly, last night we had the Jets hosting the Bills. The Jets, tough loss last night. Bills winning this one 23-20. And honestly, you know, the Jets could have tied this game in the third quarter, anyways. With that missed field goal that they kicked, completely changes the way this game is played. But and maybe they still end up losing this game. But yeah, look, the Bills get back in the W column. Good. I mean, they didn't look all too great. Now, yes, the Jets defense is really, really good. But maybe this is why they wanted to get a guy like Amari Cooper, someone who won't drop as many passes, or someone who can at least get a little bit more open as well. Aaron Rodgers had a pretty Aaron Rodgers game. It's kind of gotten to the point, too, where it's just like, yeah, he's going to throw a pick every single game. But he's still going to be very productive for you anyways. And he was pretty productive. He threw for almost 300 yards. Breece Hall had 113 yards on the ground for the Jets as well. But ultimately, Buffalo comes away with a win here. It wasn't a pretty win. Weather definitely did play a factor in this game, I think, for both offenses especially. But ultimately, yeah, it's not a good win for Buffalo, but it gets you back in the W column, and that's what you need in this league.
Yeah, I definitely believe weather played a big factor in this one because the Jets missed a couple field goals late where they could have taken the lead, and it just went right or just went wide, and it's not what you really want to see. I mean, Buffalo missed a field goal, 1 for 2, 2 for 3 on extra points. New York was 2 for 4 on field goals. So weather definitely was playing a factor on this one. The wind was very, very influential in this game, and I ultimately think it led to the Jets losing this game because those 2 field goal attempts, if they would have made one of them, this game at least would have been going into overtime, and then they make the next one, and that's a game winner. So it's not what you want to see for if you're the Jets, and now you have Devontae Adams, and the Bills also went out and they got better. So this is going to be a now it was a divisional game and it was really close, but the Jets are 2-4, the Bills are 4-2. So obviously one of these teams is in a much better situation than the other, but I think the Jets have a better potential now that they went out and they got a caliber of receiver as they did and Devontae Adams at the price that they did as well.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think for the Jets, it just proved that Robert Saleh was not the problem. It really, truly did show that Saleh was not the reason why the Jets were losing, because of the play calling. But anyways, that's going to wrap up the NFL. We're going to head on over now to the top 25 college football. By the way, Navy and Army are both ranked for the first time since sometime in the 1960s. Really, really cool stuff to see both those teams ranked this week. But let's go over our Week 7 matchups. We had Bama, number 7, hosting South Carolina. Bama winning this one 27-25. First of all, I think South Carolina, they're a well put together team. They're pretty well coached. I like the way that they've been playing in this year. They've had a tough schedule though. Alabama did not look too great in this game, and they haven't really looked right since the Georgia game. They lost to Vandy, and now you almost lose to South Carolina. You got to be better than that.
Yeah, I mean, I was, pretty enthusiastic about coming aboard with this Alabama team, but now after the loss to Vandy, it's been it's been rough. I mean, it was a close win against Georgia, and I thought it was a very good win for him, but now it's a very, very close win against a lesser South Carolina team. Now, South Carolina is a very good team, don't get me wrong. And to be 3-3 with their schedule in the SEC, you got to give them credit. And they're playing their opponents very well. And they could very well have a few games go the other way, and they could be sitting in Alabama's situation where they're 5-1 instead. But right now, Alabama's got to find a way to make these games a lot cleaner and go back to how they were winning games before they played Georgia. But they won the game, they're 5-1, and that's all the committee's going to care about, especially because it's Alabama.
Yeah, it's a win for Bama, but it ain't a pretty one. Wake Forest hosted number 10 Clemson. Clemson hitting the fucking beat the shit out of you button again, winning this one 49-14. They absolutely covered that spread. I think it was like 21.5, something like that. Yeah. Granted, Wake Forest is ass, but Clemson has, like we said on Thursday's episode, they have responded very, very well since that Georgia loss, and they just been dump trucking people, and here the fuck we are.
Yeah, I mean, they're 5-1. That loss was week 1. And I want to say their point differential since that. Like, it's got to be off the fucking charts at this point, right? Like, they've got to be at, like, plus 200 since that loss. Yeah, because, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, they've absolutely dump trucked people. 66-20 over App State, 59-35 NC State, 40-14 over Stanford, 29-13 over Florida State. Kind of a surprising number there. And then 49-14. I mean, they are dump trucking people now. Double-digit wins every single week.
Yeah, this is the Clemson team like we've expected them to be for a while, right? Like, we know Clemson is supposed to be a good team, and right now they're looking like they're going to come out of the ACC on top instead of Florida State. And Obviously, Florida State's been non-existent since losing to Georgia Tech,
They've
but
been non-existent all year, really.
yeah, at this point, we'll see what happens with Clemson. But 5-1, they're riding real high right now, and looking really really good.
That they are. UMass hosted number 21 Mizzou. Mizzou winning this one 45-3. Um, Look, this was, I think, sort of a get right game for Mizzou. The offense looked better this week than it has in the past 4 or 5 weeks now. Um, and yes, UMass is dog shit, poopy, smelly, like whatever the fuck you want to use. They are a horrible team. They're now 1-6 on the year. But this was a get right game for Mizzou, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and they looked better. They definitely played a little bit better. Again, take it with that grain of salt because UMass is horrible, but they did look better. This was the get right game, get themselves back on track offensively, get things clicking and moving again, and for the most part, they looked pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a shock to see Mizzou actually scored points on the offensive side of the ball, but like you said, UMass is not good. They're and that 3 points and that 1-6 record is just indicative of that. It's great, get back on track win for Mizzou, and I mean, they're probably not going to go much further up in the rankings because of it, but as we've seen in college football as of late, to not lose at this point is a blessing.
Yeah, nothing to really say about that because you're absolutely right. And the thing is, too, is that losing a game this year now also isn't a death sentence. You can still make the playoffs with even 2 losses, depending on what those losses are. Looking at you, Notre Dame. Anyways, number 18, Oklahoma played host in the Red River rivalry to number 1, Texas. And Texas just absolutely demolished OU. I think we both said that this was going to be a pretty close game on Thursday's episode. I said for sure it was going to be a close game. And after the first quarter, you thought, yeah, this is probably going to be a close game. OU led 3-0 after the first quarter, and then proceeded to actively shit their fucking pants every single drive and every single play, pretty much, after that offensively. And also defensively, they also shat their pants pretty damn well. It was all Texas in the second, third, and fourth quarters, and they win this one 34-3. Great performance from Quinn Ewers. Finally coming back from injury, 20 for 29, 199 yards, a touchdown, and he did throw a pick. But yeah, Texas's defense stood the fuck up in this game, and the offense just kept fucking rolling like they always do, and exposed Oklahoma for the frauds that they really are.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was with you in saying that this was going to be a close one, but 31 points, uh, that's that's crazy. I mean, for Texas to pitch a three-quarter shutout after only giving up a field goal in the first quarter is they're the number 1 team in the country for a reason. And I mean, we're gonna see just who they are when they play Georgia coming up. But right now, that's gonna be the biggest game of college football, playoff influence right now. Because after this game, Texas is 2-0 in the SEC. They're undefeated, 6-0. They're showing that they can hang in the new conference, and they're showing, hey, Oklahoma, welcome to the SEC, motherfucker. This is SEC ball. Get used to it. And they took the first SEC iteration of the Red River rivalry.
Yeah, and we even previewed that in when we did the SEC preview. We'd said Texas was ready for the SEC, and we said Oklahoma wasn't. Now, granted, you still can't truly call this, SEC ball just yet between these two. But you could certainly call that Texas is playing SEC style football. Oklahoma, not so much. USC hosted number 4 Penn State. Penn State winning this one 33-30 in overtime. And they came back against USC. USC was up 20-6 at halftime. And you know what started happening? Um, Penn State started to really run the ball in the second half, and that's why they were able to beat USC, because they started beating them on the ground. They thought maybe they could beat them in the air with Drew Aller. Not really. No. Drew Aller, 30 for 43, 391 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And that is why USC led pretty well in the first half, is Drew Aller threw a lot of interceptions in that first half. And yeah, they end up, winning this game in overtime. But overall, it's a good win for Penn State on the road, tough environment. USC has just been getting dunked on in Big Ten play, and you just love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, we kept saying that all Penn State has to do to win this game is just run the ball. Just run the fucking ball. And I mean, granted, Drew Aller did throw for almost 400 yards, but he threw for 3 picks. And if you don't have 3 picks in this game, and Miller Moss threw a pick, so that pretty much negates 1. But if you don't throw for 3 picks, this game doesn't go into overtime. USC doesn't score 30 points. And Penn State, they're still the top 4, maybe top 3 team in the country right now.
I mean, they're ranked number 3 after this week, so
I mean, they are playing very well, and like I said, to win every week in college football right now is a blessing unto itself. And for Penn State to be undefeated still, they're on a collision course for Ohio State, and that's going to be an even bigger game if they can both keep winning. I mean, granted, we'll get to them later, but
yeah, we'll get to that team down
game.
south later. Number 11, Notre Dame hosted Stanford. Notre Dame winning this one 49-7. Stanford, I mean, you're in the ACC. Yes, Notre Dame is not an ACC team, but they have this thing with the ACC, whatever. Stanford, you might as well just go back to the Pac-12. I'm sorry. That was embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you, and I don't even like you, but I'm embarrassed for you. That's how bad that game was for Stanford. Notre Dame looked competent on offense, and yeah, that's all I really got. They finally look competent on offense, and Stanford blows ass.
Yeah, I mean, Riley Leonard finally threw 3 touchdowns in the game. That's about all I can say. They won big, and they finally found a way to not lose a game against an inferior opponent, like an IU.
Yeah, and dude, that loss just keeps looking worse and worse each week. It truly keeps looking worse each week. Number 22, Pitt hosted Cal. Pitt winning this one 17-15. And this is why I said I can't really take Pitt too seriously, because Cal's not really a good team, and Pitt really hasn't played a lot of good teams this year either, and they just barely beat a pretty bad Cal team at home by 2 points. I got to see a lot more out of Pitt before I even think of them as a serious team in not only the ACC, but just in college football in general. I mean, again, yes, Cal played Miami to the wire, and they should have won that game. But if you're Pitt and you're doing this, that's just not a great sign. That tells me that you really deserve to be ranked. But, I mean, they get the win, and that's really it for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win. Committee will not really give a fuck. I mean, Cal was gonna get the benefit of the doubt of they're in the new division, so their new conference rather. They're gonna get that slight, but they lost to Florida State at the end of the day. We know Florida State is not a good team at all. And for Pitt, you won this game at home after being shut out in the second half. That's not good at all. You can't have that, especially in your place. Like it was 17-9 at halftime, and Cal only scored 6 points in the fourth quarter. But if you're Pitt, I mean, yeah, you're 6-0 right now. You got to score more points. You got to score points in the second half.
Yeah, you have to, and that's why, like I said on Thursday's episode, I cannot take Pitt seriously until I see them play actual teams. And Cal's not an actual team, and they kind of exposed Pitt, so that tells you that. Speaking of getting exposed, number 23, Illinois hosted Purdue. Illinois winning this one in overtime, 50-49. And this is what I mean by exposed, is Purdue is awful. And you had to go to overtime at home to beat Purdue. Yeah, that's embarrassing for Illinois. I think they've been slightly overrated this year, but they had that number 23 for a ranking instead of somewhere higher coming into this game. But the fact that Purdue basically launched a second quarter comeback, because you were up at the half 24-3, and Purdue came back and almost won this game in regulation, mind you. You just needed a last-second field goal to win to tie it up against Purdue. It tells me that you're not as good as we think you are, because Purdue is awful. They are awful. Them and UCLA are just like the trash can of the Big Ten this year, and yeah, you had to go to overtime to beat them, and you're a ranked team at home, favored by, 21 and a half? Embarrassing performance from Illinois. Just embarrassing from Illinois, plain and simple. Both teams played pretty well. I mean, Illinois did throw, they fumbled the ball just one time in this game. And then Purdue did a good job protecting the football. Both quarterbacks had a really, really good game as well. But again, like I said with Illinois, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, just to put it in perspective of what these other teams have done to Purdue. Notre Dame beat Purdue 66-7.
It's fucking embarrassing.
Wisconsin, without their starting quarterback, beat Purdue 52-6.
It's fucking embarrassing.
Illinois, how did you need overtime to beat them? How did you let them score 49 points?
It's fucking embarrassing.
That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, look, the only reason why they lost, or why Purdue lost this game, is they went for a fucking 2-point conversion to try and just win the game instead of having to go into double overtime with Illinois. Illinois might have lost this game if Purdue didn't do the stupid. But they did the stupid, as Purdue does. But yeah, it's just, as I've been saying,
it's fucking embarrassing.
Just really embarrassing. Number 14, BYU hosted Arizona. BYU winning this one 41-19. If you would have told me BYU would be 6-0 to start the year, I would have laughed in your fucking face. They're 6-0 to start the year, and they've beaten good teams. And they just keep on fucking rolling, man. They're beating bad teams by a lot. They're beating good teams by a lot. And, Arizona, I was high on them to start the year. I'm not so high on them now, but they're not a bad team, but they aren't a good team either. They just got dump trucked by BYU. And, yeah, BYU, man, they are a threat to win the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, color me surprised that the Mormons know how to play ball. I mean, like you said, it's not that they've just been blowing out teams. They blew out Kansas State 38-9. Kansas State is a very good football team right now. We've seen that. This is this is a very, very good BYU team right now. They're bowl eligible right now. They're one of two undefeated Big 12 teams, and with the way Utah was looking, this could be a legitimate contender for the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, and we'll get to Utah here in a moment because I forgot they played on Friday, and so ESPN puts it all the way at the bottom on those Friday games, but we'll get to that. But yeah, no, BYU is dump trucking people, and honestly, they might be my favorite to win the Big 12 at this point. The way they have been playing, the way they've been winning, yeah. Number 5, Georgia hosted Mississippi State. Georgia winning this one 41-31, and this game was a lot closer than it should have been. And I think there's some problems on Georgia's defense. Just because, yeah, you allowed Mississippi State to stay within 10 points of you in this game, and Mississippi State blows ass. So yeah, I Georgia's offense is still really good. Don't get me wrong. Carson Beck is amazing. But there's just something not right with Georgia's defense right now because you allowed one of the worst offenses, not just in the SEC, but in college football in general. You allowed them to stay within 10 points of your offense. Something ain't right.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really weird game. I mean, it's an SEC game, so you can understand that there is a case for an upset in pretty much every game. But this is, this is Georgia. They are one of the best teams on paper in the country. And like you said, this defense found a way to give up 31 points to Mississippi State. I mean, it was 27-10 at halftime. You scored 14 points and gave up 21. You lost the second half to Mississippi State. That's not a good look. I mean, granted, they won the game. They're 5-1. But yeah, no, it's fucking embarrassing. It's terrible.
Fucking embarrassing!
Yeah, it truly, truly is. And you know what else was?
It's fucking embarrassing!
Number 8, Tennessee hosting Florida. Tennessee winning this one in overtime, 23-17. Yeah, the last 2 weeks for Tennessee has just been miserable. They lose last week to Arkansas, and now they almost lose to a really bad Florida team at home. Not a good look, especially for an offense that was just super high flying. They've been held to 14 and 23 points respectively the last 2 weeks. Not good for Tennessee. They've got to figure some things out. We know how talented this offense is. It's not coming together the last few weeks. And then the defense, we found out, blows ass over these last 2 weeks. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, right now they're 5-1, so they're in the thick of things if you're Tennessee. But you got Alabama looming on the schedule coming up. So this is we got 2 really big games coming up in the SEC with heavyweights coming up. So it's going to really shake up the playoff. So if you're Tennessee, you have a chance to catch, a slumbering Bama team. And if you're Bama, you have a chance to catch a slumbering Tennessee team. So this is going to be a really interesting game next week. But I'm not really liking what I see from Tennessee. Like you said, only 14 points against Arkansas. And Arkansas is a really decent team. Florida is okay. And you only scored 23 points on them, and you're at home.
It's fucking
That's
embarrassing!
it's the best way to put it.
It really, really is. And this was game of the week. We said probably Red River Rivalry would be game of the week. Nope, this was game of the week because Red River Rivalry was a wash basically because Texas dominated it so much. Number 3, Oregon hosting number 2, Ohio State. Oregon winning this one 32-31 in regulation. And here's the thing. The bottom line is, first of all, TreVeyon Henderson, he sucks. Plain and simple. There was a play. It was a 4th and 1, I believe, or 3rd and 1, and he ended up losing yardage because instead of cutting up into the hole where he could easily get the first down, he tried to make a move to the outside where there was a bigger hole, and if he was able to get around the defender, probably would have gone in for a touchdown. He saw the touchdown instead of the first down, and he ended up losing yardage instead of just cutting it up into the hole that he should have. Also, Oregon's defense, not really impressed with them at all. Or not Oregon, Ohio State's defense, not really impressed with them at all. First of all, Oregon gave up a ton of points. Multiple missed field goals, a missed extra point, a missed 2-point conversion, and yet you still lost to Oregon. I'm not impressed at all. There's multiple points that Oregon could have scored. Oregon could have won bigger in this game, bottom line. And, they didn't. And Oregon beat themselves in this game, but they still ended up winning this game.
Yeah, I mean, just watching that game late, and Oregon was on Ohio State's doorstep late in the game, and they were down 29-31, and they had the chance to score a touchdown to put the game away, and they had to kick a field goal there. It's like not just the missed points that they had, it's the field goals that should have been touchdowns. This Ohio State defense, this was the first team, like the first legitimate team they've played all year, and this is the performance that they put up. I'm a little bit concerned for them. If this is how they're gonna play against, the heavyweights of the Big Ten, Penn State might have a real fun day against this Ohio State team, and this Ohio State team might not even make the Big Ten championship at this point.
And
that might be a stretch.
The thing is, too, is again, Oregon missed out on a lot of points in this game, and you still lost this game. The offense did not look good either. Ryan Day has a 2-4 record now against top 5 opponents as head coach. Maybe the moments are too big for him as a head coach. Also, Will Howard, what the fuck were you doing there? You decided to pull the ball and run too late. You slid too late, so time expired as you slid, and you're a fucking dumbass for that. I know you were trying to get extra yardage for your field goal kicker at that point because you were technically out of his range. You were in it. It's such a hard field goal to make at that distance. So I get you were trying to make up something, but at that point, when you decide to run with less than 4 seconds on the clock, it was like 4.5 really. When he actually decided to pull the ball and run, just at that point, you just throw the ball out of bounds, and then you send your field goal unit out there, and then you don't lose because of a stupid mistake. He had a Dak Prescott moment. He truly had a Dak Prescott moment in that game.
Yeah, that was really disheartening to see, especially it was a pretty clean game for the most part. I mean, Ohio State did have a fumble from Quashon Judkins that he lost. Will Howard fumbled that they recovered, but other than that, I mean, it was a pretty clean game. Will Howard didn't throw a pick, but just that one blaring mistake at the end. Like you said, even if he picks up 3 yards and runs out of bounds, the clock stops right there. Gives you enough time to get your field goal kicker out and kick a shorter field goal, but it's still a tough field goal, and there's no guarantee he makes the kick, right? The pressure, the blame's not on Will Howard anymore if he doesn't make the kick. It's on the kicker, and I mean it's unfair to the kicker, but yeah, Will Howard, you can't do that, especially in that caliber.
And it's like. Does he not know that the clock doesn't stop if you don't get a first down? And that's what the problem was. He slid with 2 seconds left, and the clock expired, and you can't call a timeout. And it's like, well, you're a fucking dumbass. Just throw the ball out of bounds at that point, because by the time you get to the sidelines, the clock might have been expired already. So just throw the ball out of bounds, get your field goal unit out there, and at least try. But yeah. Ohio State should have won this game, and they just didn't. the offense fell short because, again, Oregon missed out on tons of points. And, yeah, and Oregon's defense actually did a really good game in this game, too. So, credit to them. Number 13, LSU hosted number 9, Ole Miss. LSU winning this one in overtime, 29-26. I said this game could have been sneaky for game of the week. It really wasn't. It was a good game, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the high-flying offensive performance that I thought we would see. And the under hit on this one as well, which I said this over-under is probably going to go way over, but it didn't. But yeah, LSU had a good game. Ole Miss, yeah, the struggles are starting to come out. Jackson Dart, again, just he's ruining his own chances for a Heisman at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really had potential for a high-scoring game. Both teams scoring double digits in the second quarter, and then neither team could really find their rhythm again. I mean, it took overtime, but like you said, the under hit, and Ole Miss lost in overtime on a game-winning touchdown pass, and now LSU is 5-1, and Ole Miss is 5-2, and SEC is wide open. There's a lot of 5-1 teams below 6-0 Texas right now.
Yeah, it is truly the definition of wide open right now, and I mean, same with the Big Ten, honestly. But West Virginia hosted number 11 Iowa State. Iowa State winning this one 28-16. And look, West Virginia, I talked about it, especially when we previewed not just the Big 12, but when we talked about the Penn State-West Virginia game to start the year. I said West Virginia's a good team. They can at least scare you, especially at home, and they kind of scared Iowa State at home this week. But Iowa State winning in the way that they always do this year, and that's beating you both on the ground and in the air. And they did a good job of that. I mean, their running back Hansen ran for 3 touchdowns. Their quarterback threw for a touchdown. Overall, a good game for Iowa State. A good win against a conference opponent that is now 3-3. But yeah, just a good win for Iowa State.
Yeah, I mean, like I keep saying, Iowa State's 6-0 now, and to not lose a game at this point, especially an in-conference game, it's a blessing. And at this point, I believe Iowa State is now a top 10 team, and I believe they're very deserving of it at this point. They're playing really good ball, and they're showing the other team from Iowa, the Hawkeyes, how to actually play football.
Yeah, Iowa State moved up to number 9 this week after that win. Number 18, Kansas State was on the road in Colorado, and Kansas State wins this game 31-28 with a touchdown with just over 2 minutes left in the game, a 50-yard touchdown pass from Avery Johnson to ultimately win this game for Kansas State. Colorado's not good, but Kansas State has some problems if they're playing this close to a Colorado team that I don't think is that good. They have 2 good players on that team and a meh coach, and you end up only beating them by 3, and you have to score a touchdown with only 2:14 left on the clock. Suboptimal, to say the least. And again, they got their shit kicked in by BYU, and granted, BYU's a really good team now, but there's some slight issues I have with Kansas State and they don't play well on the road either.
Yeah, and I mean, for Kansas State, if you're a team that wants to compete and win the Big 12 and potentially go to the playoffs, you got to learn how to win on the road. I mean, you're not going to have a home playoff game. It's not like in the NBA, the NFL, or, any other professional sport where teams will have home playoff games. You're more than likely playing this at a neutral site. And if you can't win, I mean, you can win away. If you're playing a team like Colorado this close, and Colorado is not a playoff team by any means, unless they win out right now, and Iowa State and BYU lose 3 games, they're not gonna go to the Big 12 championship. They might not make the playoffs if you're Colorado, but Kansas State has a legitimate chance if they can compete for the Big 12, and they're not gonna compete if they're playing this like this. You got to win bigger, and you got to not let them score. And I mean, you were pretty much even when both quarterbacks threw a pick. No fumbles in the game, so a 3-point win it's a little concerning.
I 100% agree with you there. Hawaii hosted number 17 Boise State. Boise State winning this one just 28-7, and you wouldn't have thought, that it would be this low scoring for Boise State, especially with the number one running back in the country, who only ran 31 times for 217 yards and 1 touchdown. I think yards per carry, this might have been Genty's worst game this year. In terms of, touchdowns, this is his second worst game this year. But I think it's kind of like the same thing with the NFL London games. The travel for Boise State having to go over, I believe, 4 time zones for them. I believe they're Mountain Time. I don't believe they are Pacific Time. So if that's the case, that's 4 time zones over to Hawaii. Kind of the same deal. Just not able to perform that well while traveling. And it makes sense, right? But, Boise State, good win. Again, Genty, 217 yards. My bad. Still a good game from him. He's still the best running back in college football, maybe in college football history. And, they just continue to keep rolling in Boise.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It might be his worst game, like, for yards per carry. But at the end of the day, he had as many yards on the ground, just himself, as they had through the air. That's a hell of a performance. I mean, he only scored 1 touchdown. So that was as many touchdowns as Hawaii got as a team. So, he did his part. And, Boise State's 5-1 with that loss to a very good Oregon team who they could have beaten. This might be our group of 5 playoff representative.
I think they are no matter what. I've been saying this basically all week, especially on our Twitter, saying that a 1-loss Boise will absolutely get in over undefeated Army or Navy, and people are like, "Oh no, undefeated Army and Navy will get in." Not over a 1-loss Boise. Ain't no fucking way.
Not with that loss to Oregon.
Not with that loss to Oregon.
Goes undefeated.
And not with the way that Boise State is able to just dominate, and also playing in a much, much tougher conference than the American Conference. There's no fucking way that a 1-loss Boise doesn't make it into the playoffs over a undefeated Army or Navy. And then lastly, Friday, we got some problems in Utah. Number 27, Arizona State hosted number 16 Utah, and they win this one. And Arizona State winning 27-19. Cam Rising, awful performance. 16 for 37, 209 yards, 3 interceptions. And, I mean, that's really what lost Utah the game. Otherwise, they kind of dominated the game. They controlled time of possession by a lot, but 3 touchdowns by your star quarterback. Yes, he was coming off of injury, but still, awful performance from Cam Rising. He is redshirt eligible to have an 8th year of eligibility next year if he wants to take that, but I don't know what's more impressive at this point, or who's the bigger star, him or his guidance counselor at the school, to find out another year of classes for him to take.
Yeah, the real unfortunate news for Utah outside of losing this game is Cam Rising is out for the year now.
Yeah, that too.
So, yeah, they have just, not only did they see their playoff hopes get dashed, just in this game, now they are taking the biggest hit of the season with their quarterback being gone yet again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Utah. you lose your star quarterback. Again, he's got another year of eligibility now, but it's just can he find you know can his counselor even find him classes at this point? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. 8 years in college football, man. That's actually nuts. But yeah. So first of all, we finally have a goalie goal this year. This is actually really early in the season for the NHL. We finally have a goalie goal. Gustafson from Minnesota. He scored a goalie goal tonight. Anyways,
Well, good for him.
yeah, good for him. It's nice to see goalie goals in the NHL. You never see one this early in the year, though. So yeah, but
Make for an interesting year, huh?
dude, it's been interesting, all right. Anyways, guys, rate, review, subscribe. Let us know what you guys want to see more of course. NBA season's going to be starting here, I think, next week. But anyways, we got the MLB playoffs still going right now, obviously, and then football is in mid-season form. An emphasis on mid for some of these teams, especially in the NFL. But looking at you, Dallas. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. Follow us on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, at the Andrew and Ian Show. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you guys on Thursday.